Now, a member of a Black conservative leadership network warns of mass violence if leaders follow through on calls to defund police. One America's Stefan Kleinhenz has more from Washington.
All right, I'm joined now by Bishop Counsel Nedd from Pennsylvania. Your Grace, thanks so much for coming on. Some interesting times. You've worked closely with African-American communities, both in D.C. and where you are now in Pennsylvania, in many different roles, as a clergyman, working on the Hill as a staffer. Your perspective on everything going on in the country right now?
Well, I'm greatly distressed by a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing happening. It's sort of taken an emotional toll on me. As a clergyman, I don't like a lot of the stuff that I see. All civility seems to be lost. Usually when times of crisis, people turn to God. But, most of the churches across the country were shut down during the pandemic and are just slowly now starting to reopen. So people don't have the institution of church to fall back on the way they normally would. It's a distressing time, but it's also a busy time. I spend a lot of time on the phone now talking to parishioners, but I also spend some time out in the streets actually trying to keep the peace.
In part of this, we've seen people calling for the defunding of the police. You have a unique role as well as serving as a bishop in the community there. You're also a constable, so you're a peace officer and at times even a police officer. Right. Your perspective and your thoughts on what would happen to communities like your own if we did in fact defund the police?
Well, yeah, it's very simple to me. If police are defunded, literally the very next morning, what we would see across this country in just about every major urban city would be streets littered with dead bodies, with corpses and seriously injured people seeking help. We can't eliminate the police. You've got these organized protesters calling for all of these sort of grand schemes across the country, but it's not going to be played out in their communities. It's going to be played out in inner city communities across this country with, again, seriously injured and dying people in the streets every morning. Again, rich man's war, poor man's fight. Most hard-working people, black, white, it doesn't matter your race. Most hardworking people do not want the police to just vanish.
So, Your Grace, another part of this is we've seen across the country, as well as the protests have become the riots, we've also seen people removing monuments that people claim are racist in their nature and don't belong there. What are your thoughts on that? Should we remove that part of our history?
Well, I think, should we have debates about these things? Should we have conversations about these things? Certainly. Just ripping down statues, that's not what we do in this country. That's not what we've done in this country historically. That's what they do in other parts of the world where they try to whitewash their history. I think it's important. The reason why I think America has survived this long is because we have these constant reminders of our past so that we don't repeat certain mistakes. And, where something might have been appropriate 100 years ago, it's not appropriate now. We should have a discussion about it.
Bishop Counsel Nedd bringing a lot of peace and clarity to a lot of the issues we're facing in the country right now. We really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.